On our 5th wedding anniversary, I'd planned to tell Adrian I was pregnant, but I waited until midnight and all I got was a voice note. Emergency at the office. Don't wait up. I stared at the screen, a chill crawling over my skin. He didn't know that 10 minutes earlier I'd seen Vivian's Instagram story. Single, loving it. Thanks to someone for helping me move all night, and even cooking me steak so touched. In the photo, the hand holding the plated steak wore a wedding band identical to mine. I calmly tapped and booked the earliest OB/GYN appointment for the next morning. My phone buzzed again as Vivian's messages flooded in. Serena, you stole the spot that was mine. How have these 10 years felt? Taylor only married you out of pity. He doesn't love you. He's always loved me. I'm divorced now, and I'm going after Adrian again. Stop clinging to him like a leech. I powered the phone off without answering. I'd always known Adrian didn't love me. We'd grown up together. When my parents died in a car crash at 10, Eleanor plucked me from the relatives fighting over the inheritance and raised me like her own. Riley, Adrian fell for Vivian at first sight. They were a couple overnight. I became their perfect third wheel, writing his love letters, buying her breakfast. The year we graduated, Adrian proposed out of nowhere. I knew he was doing it only because his mother had threatened to die if he didn't marry the sensible girl he'd known forever. I didn't see Adrian for an entire week. When he finally showed up, he was drunk, draped over Vivian's shoulder. I stood at the top of the stairs and watched. Vivian played innocent. It's my fault, Mr. Vance drank on my behalf. Serena, please don't blame him. Adrian's arm was still around her waist, his head nuzzling her neck. Anything else, or are you staying for breakfast? I asked, arms folded. Adrian seemed to sober at the sound of my voice. He shoved Vivian aside and stumbled toward me. Sweetheart. I stepped out of reach. Anything else? Vivian flipped her hair to flash the hickey on her neck, smirking. Then I'll leave Taylor to you, take good care of him. I answered evenly. Taking care of my husband is never a chore. After Vivian stormed out, I dumped him on the couch and went upstairs. In all our married years, Adrian rarely touched alcohol. Now I realized he hadn't quit at all. Only the person who could drive him to forget everything hadn't been around. Just like in college, when he'd get plastered over Vivian right after they split. Rowan paid Vivian $500,000 to disappear and shoved Adrian and me onto a flight overseas. The first months abroad, Adrian drank himself into rages. He'd drag home a gang of buddies at 2 a.m. and trash the house. If I pleaded, he'd snarl, "Get lost." I'd still smile, fetch him from bars, clean up. One night he smashed a bottle and shouted, "Who do you think you are, Serena?" "My mother's lapdog. Aunt Eleanor asked me to look after you," I whispered, twisting the hem of my shirt. Adrian sneered, yanked the pearl necklace from his throat, and hurled it into the pool. "So obedient? Go fetch it then. Bring it back and I'll leave with you." Without thinking, I dove in. The cold clawed up my nose, my eyes burned shut. I sank and surfaced until half drowned, my fingers closed around the chain. On the deck, Adrian finally noticed I wasn't coming up. When he dragged me out, I was unconscious, the necklace still clenched in my fist. Maybe my stupidity pricked his conscience. I woke to him slumped over my bed, hair dripping, sheets soaked. He held my gaze, voice hoarse. "Serena, I'm sorry. I went too far." I turned toward the window. "It's nothing. Just keep your word and stop drinking." After all, he jumped in to save me. I couldn't blame him. Adrian nodded hard. "Deal. I promise." From then on, he seemed like a different person. For the 2 weeks I was hospitalized, he never left. The slightest cough at night, and he'd jerk awake, patting my back until I slept again. Back on campus, we were inseparable, same classes, shared lab all-nighters, mocking the professor's comb-over. We'd never been that close. After one party, Adrian suddenly kissed me. Moonlight brushed his face, his lashes trembled, ear tips scarlet. I didn't push him away. When the long kiss ended, we walked back to the dorms in silence. One afternoon, he pulled me under the campus's old banyan tree, cheeks scarlet, and thrust a velvet box at me. "For you." Inside lay a pearl necklace glowing softly in the sun. "Serena," he swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing. "Will you be my girlfriend?" The sunlight was warm on his handsome face. As he fastened the clasp with shaking fingers, my heart pounded. For a moment, I truly believed he loved me. Looking back, I'd never felt more stupid. Next morning, brushing my teeth, I found Adrian leaning in the doorway. "Something on your mind?" I asked around my toothbrush. He stepped closer, voice flat. "Vivian just divorced and she's in a tight spot. I only helped her move. Don't get any ideas." "Understood." I curved my lips. "You help her move today, she warms your bed tomorrow, fair trade." "Serena." His face darkened. We're nothing like that. Stop being filthy-minded. He cooed her name while calling me filthy. I shoved past him. Whether you're clean or not, you know best. Adrian's eyes iced over. Not everyone schemes like you. I've never dragged up your dirty tricks. Show some gratitude. What tricks? I seized his wrist. Explain or you're not leaving. He flung me off. If you hadn't tattled to Mom, Vivian wouldn't have dumped me and married that bastard. You owe her every year since. I froze. Serena. He gave a cold laugh. You schemed this hard just to get me. You've got what you wanted, so don't push your luck. I went ice cold, as if someone had dumped a bucket of ice water over my head. Back then Vivian had taken the 50 grand and broken things off willingly. What did that have to do with me? I hadn't said a single word to anyone. My eyes stung red in an instant, tears rolling down one by one. Adrian's gaze softened. He reached out to wipe my cheeks. Serena, as long as you behave, I promise the title of Mrs. Vance will always be yours. I slapped his hand away hard. Adrian, in your heart I'm that despicable. When did I start liking you, don't you know? Whatever Vivian says you believe? He looked away. She's not like you. I actually laughed out loud. I should have realized long ago. Vivian would forever be the scarlet mole on his heart. What was I still hoping for? That was the 4th year of our romance. Every day sweet as honey. Friends loved to tease. When are the wedding candies coming? Soon, right after we fly home. I smiled until my eyes curved. I didn't notice Adrian's face stiffen for a second. That night I bubbled with plans for the ceremony while he stared at his phone in a daze. I couldn't sleep. At midnight I went to the living room for water and saw the balcony lights still on. Adrian stood with his back to me. Several empty bottles rolled near his feet. The glow of the screen lit his face. Smoke rings curled around his furrowed brows. I hid behind the curtain, unease prickling my chest. When everything went quiet I tiptoed closer. He'd fallen asleep clutching the phone. I knelt beside him and saw what was on the screen. A wedding invitation. Bride Vivian. My hand shook. I tapped the display by mistake. The picture shrank, and the chat history between Adrian and his buddy appeared. Chase, bro, you know Vivian's getting married? Adrian. Chase, invites are out. You two were crazy in love. We all thought you'd end up together. How'd you split? Adrian. Ancient history. Chase, you really over her? Don't tell me you've fallen for that little bookworm sidekick. Adrian. No. Adrian. Lonely overseas, that's all. She was just something to kill time. Those lines carved open my chest like razor blades. So 4 years of sweetness had been nothing but killing time. Hands trembling, I backed out of the chat and stumbled to bed, eyes open until dawn. Next morning Adrian was startled by my bloodshot eyes. What happened? Homesick. I forced a smile. Let's go home. He froze, then finally rasped. Okay, we'll head back. As the flight lifted off, I watched the city shrink outside the window and felt those 4 years dissolve like a dream. Dreams end, and it was time to break up with Adrian. But life never waits for your timing. Before I could bring up splitting, word came that Eleanor was in the hospital. Beside her bed, she weakly pressed a folder into my hand. Only then did I learn my parents had been partners in Vance Holdings. They'd left me shares. The agreement declared, the moment I married Adrian, those shares would be transferred to me. More importantly, if Adrian ever cheated after the wedding, half of his own shares would become mine. Apart from having to marry him, the contract was all win and no loss for me. While I hesitated, Eleanor clutched my hand. Serena, the only daughter-in-law I acknowledge is you. Her eyes reddened. I was supposed to take that business trip. Adrian had a sudden fever, so your parents went instead, or else, all these years the guilt has eaten at me. She couldn't finish, her voice broke. I clutched the contract, fingers trembling, eyes burning. Auntie, thank you for taking care of me, but I need time to think. I knew Adrian didn't love me, and I didn't want to chain him with a paper trap. Yet what my parents left behind wasn't something I could give up lightly. I turned it over the whole way home. At the gate I found Adrian leaning against the wall, an unlit cigarette between his fingers. He knew I hated the smell. Serena. He lifted his head. Let's get married. His voice was so soft I almost missed it. What did you say? I couldn't trust my ears. He looked down, twirling the cigarette. My mom doesn't have long. I want her to rest easy. I stayed silent a long while. Once we're married, whether you love me or not, you can't cheat. Can you promise that? He smiled and ruffled my hair. What are you imagining? I'd never cheat. The contract in my backpack suddenly felt like lead. I stared into his eyes. Remember what you said today. The moment he left, I signed my name without hesitation. If he stayed in line, the agreement would never see daylight. But if he stepped over the boundary, Vance Holdings would have a new last name, Serena. For 5 years we lacked fiery passion, but life rolled on peacefully. Just like any ordinary couple. I thought we could go on like this forever. Now it's time to end it. I dug out the contract I'd buried in dust, called my lawyer, and hired a private investigator. When the evidence was airtight, I rang Adrian. Adrian, let's divorce. Dead silence. I thought he hadn't heard. Before I could repeat, a woman's voice cooed. Sister-in-law, are you jealous you weren't invited to the reunion? Taylor, shame on you. How could you skip your sister-in-law? Laughter and clatter poured through the speaker. Come on, sis, it's been ages since we partied together. Yeah, drag your wife over. Look, she's so jealous she's asking for a divorce. The whole group burst into raucous laughter. Adrian coldly rattled off an address and cut the call. Didn't even give me a chance to explain. I had no choice but to take the divorce papers to him. I'd barely reached the private room door when gossip spilled out. Everyone knows Serena stole the man. In my book, the title Mrs. Vance rightfully belongs to Vivian. Right, Viv? Blame that fox for seducing him. Word is she's trailed the young master since kids, can't be chased off or cursed away. What's she after? The Vance fortune, of course. How can a wild brat with no parents deserve our ad? I couldn't take another second. I shoved the door open and slapped the speaker across the face. Vivian sprang up shrieking. Serena, are you insane? I swept the room. Adrian wasn't there, then turned and landed a second slap on Vivian. Was the 50 grand fun to spend? Vivian's eyes darted. She pointed at me, voice shaking. Serena, how dare you hit me? The private room fell dead silent. I meant to hit you. I raised my hand to slap her again. A hand seized my wrist midair. Haven't you made enough of a scene? Adrian stepped in front of Vivian, eyes glacial. Serena, have you lost your mind? Look at yourself, nothing but a shrew. Vivian cowered behind him, tugging his sleeve. Taylor, don't be angry. Serena must have seen me and gotten upset. That's why she hit me without even asking. It's my fault. She doesn't like me. I shouldn't have come to the reunion. Adrian stroked her cheek, heart aching. Vivian, you're too kind. She slaps you and you still speak for her. Even though I'd long known he didn't love me, the sight stabbed me raw. Serena, apologize to Vivian now. His voice was arctic. I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I? I was done arguing. I flung the divorce papers into his face. We're through. I spun to leave. Stop. Adrian barked. He stared at the papers, complexion darkening by the second. All he'd done was show Vivian a little extra care lately, and I dared humiliate him with a public divorce. A cruel smirk tugged at his mouth. You want a divorce? Fine. Bow to Vivian and say you're sorry and I'll sign. Certain I'd refuse, he waited smug. He misjudged. My nails dug crescents into my palms as, to his shock, I bent 90 degrees. I'm sorry. When I straightened, my eyes were blood red. You're that desperate to leave? Fine, divorce it is. Don't come crawling back. Teeth clenched, he scrawled his name before rage could cool. I said nothing. I took the papers and walked out. Watching my retreating back, Adrian was blindsided by a sudden, nameless panic. He almost followed, but Vivian caught his arm. Taylor, my face hurts, she whimpered. Serena's so childish. In a few days she'll beg you to remarry. She doesn't know how good she has it. Adrian told himself. Where could Serena go without me? 20+ years of history. She couldn't really want out. Just a tantrum. Come on, let's get you patched up, he said, steering her out, already planning to freeze me out for a fortnight. Back at the mansion I packed. Every corner of our marital home suffocated me with memory. I boxed every personal item, then texted Adrian. Wednesday, 10 a.m., City Hall Marriage Bureau. I slid my wedding band onto the coffee table and left. My new loft was quiet. I collapsed into sleep. Let the tearing pain stay in yesterday. Starting now, I live for myself. Days later, while shopping for furniture at the mall, I ran straight into Adrian and Vivian. She was practically glued to his arm, the picture of newlywed bliss. Adrian jerked his arm free when he spotted me. I turned away like any stranger. He chased and caught my wrist. Regret flickered across his face. Serena, problem. I met his gaze ice cold. He noticed the new cutlery in my cart and laughed. Buying new cutlery to get my attention. Fine, tonight I'll come home for dinner. The tone was pure condescension. Biting back venom, I smiled sweetly. Great. I'll cook. He sauntered off with Vivian, who threw me a triumphant smirk. I kept browsing. By Wednesday it wouldn't matter. That night my phone exploded. Serena, where the hell are you? He kept his voice low, but fury cracked through. I canceled a board meeting for you, and you stand me up. Have I spoiled you rotten? First you trashed the reunion, now this? He stood in the dining room, ranting, not noticing the 5-year mansion stripped bare. I laughed softly. Adrian, we're divorcing, remember? See you tomorrow at City Hall. I hung up before he could reply. Only then did he sense something wrong. The house was hollow, my things gone. Only the plain wedding band lay on the coffee table. Staring at it, he felt a violent tug inside. Back when his mother was dying, he'd juggled the company in hospitals, too drained to care about rings. I'd asked him to pick. He'd pointed at random. That simple circle had stayed on my finger 5 years. A fresh stab of guilt. He remembered the year she passed. I'd ferried lunchboxes to his office, forcing him to eat. Yet somewhere along the line, I'd stopped caring. He slumped on the couch, every memory of my devotion replaying. Now he saw clearly. He didn't want the divorce. But he also realized I no longer loved him. His thumb froze on the ring as a thought struck. He suddenly knew when my frost had begun. The day he'd heard Vivian was divorcing and reached out. A buddy tipped him off. Vivian's husband Jordan was dragging her through court. They found her in a white dress streaked with grime, hair wild, tears striping her small face. Whatever teenage embers still glowed flared, his heart melted. He helped his first love up, aching at how tarnished she looked. He knew he was crossing a line. That day he took her straight to the hospital. While he ran tests and paid bills, he'd glimpsed a figure. So like Serena, gone in a blink. He'd told himself it was coincidence. Now he knew it had been me. Why was Serena at the hospital? Panic surged. He dialed my number over and over. When I stepped out of the bathroom, my phone screen was crammed with missed calls. Every one of them was from Adrian. I stared, bewildered by what he could want. The next second it rang again. I hesitated, then answered. Serena. Adrian's voice came through hoarse and ragged, startling me. What do you need? 3 months ago, why did you go to the hospital? He asked, tentative, as if afraid of brushing against a wound. I froze. I hadn't expected him to bring it up. After a moment's silence, I decided to stop hiding. Be at City Hall tomorrow morning, and I'll tell you. A long pause stretched before his reply reached me. All right. I hung up and drifted to the window, only to find fine rain threading through the air, hazy as the day my parents died. Once the divorce papers were stamped, I would be severed from the Vance family for good. I had no wish to meddle in their company. I would sell every share I owned. The next day I packed and left early. When I reached City Hall, Adrian was already there, dark circles under his eyes, his collar crooked. You didn't wait here all night, did you? I asked, incredulous. He lowered his head and gave a soft yeah. I said nothing more and handed him a report. Here's the answer you wanted. His hands shook so violently he almost dropped it. The instant he read the words, his face drained white. You read it right, I said. That day I went for a checkup. I was pregnant. But don't worry. I dealt with it long ago. A home without love doesn't deserve a new life. I dropped my gaze, hiding the pain, my hand unconsciously brushing my stomach. Serena, how could you not tell me I was the father? Adrian shouted, eyes bloodshot. How could you be so selfish, so cruel, to erase our child like that? He kept roaring, but a laugh slipped out of me, until tears came with it. Adrian, so now you finally remember you're the father? Remorse flooded his face. He frantically reached to wipe my tears, clumsy and desperate. I'm sorry, Serena. I shouldn't have said that. We'll have other children. I shoved his hand away in disgust. If you're really sorry, let me go. Let's finish this divorce now. I couldn't stand another second beside him. He twisted around and seized my hand. Serena, I know I was wrong. Don't leave me, okay? You know you're the only family I have left. We grew up together. Can't you forgive me one more time? At that moment, the almighty CEO was gone. He was a soaked puppy begging for mercy. But Adrian, I had already given you your chance. It was you who tossed your promises away. I looked at him and said nothing. Only after a long while did he understand. I would never soften for him again. Everything that followed went smoothly. I produced the contract Eleanor once drafted and handed it to him. Contrary to what I'd expected, he didn't rage. If these papers could ease my pain, he said, he'd gladly sign over every share as compensation. I shook my head. I didn't want his compensation. What the contract demanded was simply the price of broken promises. What was rightfully mine. When I walked out, I ran straight into Vivian. She blocked me, hatred blazing in her eyes. Why are you here? The divorce is done. Why do you still stick like glue? I couldn't be bothered. I sidestepped, but she flung an arm across my path, cradling her belly, triumph ripe on her face. Truth is, Serena, I'm pregnant. Mrs. Vance will be me, so roll as far away as you can. Congratulations, then. I answered flatly. She loathed my calm. Her body shook as she raised a hand to slap me. Before it landed, someone caught her wrist. Adrian exuded ice. What do you think you're doing? His gaze flicked to her stomach, something strange flitting through his eyes. Whose kid is that? I never touched you. Now I wasn't in a hurry. I watched with interest. I hadn't expected front row seats to this circus. Adrian turned to me, wounded innocence in his look. Serena, the child isn't mine. I swear I never laid a hand on her. Believe me, only a fool would buy that, and I wasn't one. Besides, whether the baby was his no longer concerned me. Vivian clutched his sleeve through her tears. Taylor, what are you saying? I love you. How could I carry another man's child? Adrian flung her off. Vivian, enough. I won't marry you, and I won't claim that baby. Don't ever show up here again. Vivian shrieked, disbelief splitting her face. Taylor, you're joking, right? Don't you remember? You said I was the one you loved most. Her wailing grated on him. He shoved her away hard. You think I don't know? You dumped me for 500 grand back then. Now you dare speak of love. No, it wasn't like that. It was Serena. She told Eleanor on us. Vivian babbled between sobs. Shut up. How dare you slander Serena? Adrian's face was thunderous. He swung a brutal slap that snapped her head sideways. I watched the farce unfold and felt only weary disgust. He had known all along why Vivian left him years ago, yet he'd forgiven her again and again, even helped her weave lies to smear me, because back then his heart held Vivian. Now that I was walking away, he was terrified of losing everything. So he remembered my worth and turned to hurt another woman. From start to finish he had been selfish. I saw it clearly only now at the very end. Still, it wasn't too late. I gave a faint shake of my head, a cold smile brushing my lips, and turned away. Adrian's shouts behind me couldn't make my feet turn back. The Vance Group was soaring. It took me almost no time to sell every share I owned. I donated half the money to girls' schools in impoverished mountains. The rest will keep me comfortable for life. I'm going to wander, to see the world while I still can. The day before I left the city, I visited Eleanor's grave site and ran straight into Adrian. He stood in front of the headstone, dressed in black, motionless. I sighed silently, laid my flowers, and turned to go. Serena. Adrian's voice stopped me. I didn't want to shame him in front of his mother's stone, so I paused and waited. When we were kids, I actually found you kind of annoying. I showed no reaction, as if I hadn't heard. I hated how Mother praised you all the time, how she made me copy everything you did. Most of all, I hated the way you looked at me, like you owed me something. My body froze. I hadn't realized he'd seen through me. He gave a bitter laugh. Did you think I didn't notice? From the day you moved in, you stopped calling me by name. You watched me in silence, followed a step behind, but you never once took that extra step forward. It drove me crazy, Serena, because the way you acted told me that no matter what I did, you'd forgive me. So why won't you forgive me this time? A muffled sob rose behind me. I didn't look back, I walked faster. Some things are like that. Once you place one foot wrong, there's no path home. Later I visited my parents' graves. I talked to them for ages. About the love I once carried for Adrian, the grievances I'd stored year after year, and the life I planned from now on. The evening breeze lifted the petals at the footstone and carried them off, just as the past was carried away. Freed of every tie, I boarded my flight to Finland without saying goodbye to anyone. Time flew, and I slipped into a Finnish rhythm. I found a simple job, no big salary, but it filled my days. I love the freedom here, the quiet. A long-lost happiness wraps around me. One day an unexpected figure hovered outside my door. Adrian paced, hesitant. When I neared, he said, "Long time no see." My new friend asked who he was. I smiled. A childhood friend. I'd already set the past down. Apart from that lousy romance and failed marriage, we still share the bond of growing up together. Yet when Adrian heard my answer, his face darkened. My friend tactfully stepped away, leaving us alone. These past months I'd caught scattered news about Adrian. I heard Vivian finally stopped hounding him, admitting she'd come back only for money. Divorced Jordan. Stories she'd invented to milk his sympathy. Even the pregnancy belonged to her ex. Adrian was livid. He hated Vivian for wrecking his home and hated himself more for a reckless mistake beyond repair. He paid someone to rough up Vivian's ex, but the man kept evidence and blackmailed him. In the end, Adrian wired $5 million to make it go away. To me, it sounded like someone else's anecdote. The words drifted past and left no ripples. None of it had anything to do with me anymore. I asked Adrian why he'd come. He gazed at me with that old tenderness and started wandering down memory lane. The swing we shared as kids, the movies we watched while studying abroad, the lamp I left on for him every night of our marriage. I knew exactly what he wanted. I looked at him and smiled, then changed the subject. You're in luck. It's perfect season for the northern lights. Let's go watch them tonight. Hope flashed in his eyes. At dawn we sat on the snow. Green ribbons of light rippled across the sky, gliding over the forest, brushing the wooden roofs, drifting before our faces. The world felt suspended in a dream. Adrian was lost in it. When he surfaced, I turned to him. Beautiful, isn't it? He nodded eagerly, awe shining in his eyes. They're marvelous, and the world is huge, but life is short. I want to spend mine seeing every corner of it. I spoke slowly, calmly. Adrian, you were right. We grew up side by side. We mattered to each other. Right and wrong are so tangled, I don't care to unravel them anymore. I met his gaze and said each word clearly. Adrian, maybe you're still unaccustomed to being alone, but I need you to know. The road we walked together has come to its end. Adrian, it's time we both said goodbye to the past. Silence settled. Neither of us spoke again. I think he understood. Under the shimmering sky, I made a quiet wish. May Adrian and I never meet again in this lifetime. Later, after long months in Finland, I moved on, several countries, all beautiful. I met fascinating people and made a few friends I could talk to. When loneliness struck, I let a few brief romances bloom. They faded quickly, and that was fine. Love has never been essential to me. It starts when hearts flutter and ends when feelings cool. And that's exactly right. Sometimes I catch a familiar silhouette on a street corner. Always the same distance away, simply watching, making sure I'm all right. As time passes, it stops bothering me. I treat it as any other stranger's glance. Life is too short, and I'd rather spend what's left on the endless wonders of this earth. Thank you for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed the video, please like and share it with friends. We look forward to your comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more captivating tales. See you next time.